right, welcome Josh to Behind the Build. Thank you for joining us today. Josh is from Classic Landscapes out in Edmonton. A little bit different than usual. We're usually speaking with contractors and builders, but we're going to see how landscaping is an integral and sometimes overlooked part of the construction process. So Josh, thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Renee.
Good. How's the weather in Edmonton?
Oh, it's beautiful today. Holy smokes. It was pretty windy and rainy yesterday. Had some storms roll through.
Okay.
But I
It's
think we've
actually
got some good
beautiful here
weather.
too. It's not on the East Coast, so I don't know what kind of heat wave that is, but it's all
Yeah,
right across.
yeah, we're looking at 29 degrees, I think, on Friday.
Wow. Nice. It's good for landscaping, eh?
Yep.
All right, so we'll jump right into it. If you wouldn't mind just giving us a little bit of background about your company, how did it get started? Obviously, it's a family-owned business, so just go into how it started and how you got into it.
Yeah, sounds good. Classic Landscapes was born in 1880. My dad started the business as a means to get through his university degree. He was started in accounting and decided to shift gears actually while he was in that degree and went into business. But yeah, he just fell in love with landscaping. He started landscaping backyards with a wheelbarrow and shovels and his roommate, and then started to operate skid steers. Bought his first Bobcat, year two, and it kind of took off from there. He discovered that machines could really help him get things done faster, and he just a lot of hard work and a lot of grit. And he decided to keep his business rolling after university, and he discovered really quickly that he needed to buy materials in bulk and store them somewhere so that he could use them throughout the season on his projects, but also was really annoyed at the fact that it sat there most of the season. And so he decided that while buying in bulk, he would also sell to other landscapers and homeowners in the area while he used it for himself. And so he started vertically integrating his organization into a supply and construction landscape company. And part of his growth story included some acquisitions and other family members that wanted to join the business, like myself and my brother. I think all of my siblings worked for my dad at one point or another in some capacity. But my brother Brandley and I really took a liking to landscaping in general. I just loved, when I started with him when I was 14, so 25 years ago, and started in his greenhouse or garden center. I was watering plants as a 14-year-old. There wasn't a whole lot I could do outside of that. There's rules about being on big commercial projects as a young teenager, and so he carefully gave me some experience as a young lad. But eventually I got into the construction and management of larger projects, and made the decision after my own university degree that I would continue on with the business. My brother and I bought the operating lines from him, and at the time it was called Classic Landscapes and Classic Gardens, separating the two different operating lines, so the retail and the construction and services side. And then he continues to own the holdings portion of the business, which is Classic Holdings, which owns all the buildings and the land. So it made it possible for my brother and I to purchase from him. If we had to purchase the entire lot, we'd be in debt for our entire lives. I feel he built quite the enterprise over the years. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we are today. The acquisitions of smaller businesses helped him gain some divisions that he wouldn't have been able to do organically. Like we purchased a vinyl fencing company, purchased another garden center that knew more about plants, smaller plants like annuals and perennials. And yeah, and we bought a screener operation, a topsoil screening operation, so we can produce our own topsoil. But some of these things he had started to do on his own, and these acquisitions were ways of enhancing that. So we like to call them acqui-hires. We find a really good person who's running a good operation, and we want that person to be part of us. And so we essentially buy the organization over time, while that original owner benefits from that, and then they become part of our team and enhance the overall organization. So
Nice. You're kind of amalgamating all
yeah,
these resources, and yeah, no, I think that's a great model. So you and your brother are kind of the prime owners now. You guys are running the business.
right. That's right. Yep. Yeah. For about 5 years now, we've been operating without the help of Dad, in the business, and it's been really good. Every family business, and anyone that's in a family business, would be lying to you if they said it wasn't smooth and easy. There was one story, I I think I shared this with you before, but I was driving through the border once, and there was the border patrol asked me a few questions, the typical questions: where are you going? How long are you going to be there? Why is your license plate Sealand? I had a personalized license plate Sealand for Classic Landscapes, and so, well, that stands for the company that I own. And he said, "Oh, how'd you come across that?" He started asking me all these personal questions. Well, my dad started it, and yada yada, and he's like, "Oh, so you were fed with a silver spoon?" I said, I kind of was taken back. I said, "Sure, you may see it that way." And we kind of, I continued on my way. You don't argue with the border patrol. But it made me think a lot about it. Made me reflect upon the years that and countless hours that I put into being part of this organization. It doesn't work when you're not the right person for the role. And that's one of the things that we've learned over the years is you've got to have the right people in the seats that make sense for your organization.
Mm-hmm. So obviously you guys have evolved a lot, in terms of headcount, in terms of revenue, over the years. So I was wondering if you would speak to that, kind of where you're at today, and
Yeah.
you're doing, multi-million-dollar commercial projects now. So how have things changed over the years from when your dad started, maybe economy-wise or margin-wise, and where are things at today?
Yeah. So, as my dad grew the business, he was of the mind that, if a client needed it, we're going to do it, and we're going to figure out a way to do it. And that's what gave us the vertical integration. We were able to expand into various different divisions and services. And we became the expert in most, if not all, of those services. And so, I would say, when back in the 2000s, early 2000s, the economy in the Alberta market was just booming. Developers were building, hundreds of thousands of lots in Edmonton a year, and we were, we would provide them a price, and they'd say, "Get started tomorrow." Fast forward 10, 15 years, so like 2015-ish, 2016, it started to slow way down, and other competitors hearing about the Alberta market were coming in and dropping their prices, and some of them 30-40% lower than our prices. And so it made us start to really figure out, well, how low can we go? Let's not race to the bottom, but let's figure out where we can be. And so we had to really tighten things up and be more efficient in certain things, smarter in how we worked. but yeah, we today are hitting a revenue of about 30 million. We're tracking to see 35 this year, but that is if everything aligns and we hit our goals. But yeah.
Nice. It's been quite a journey. So I wanted to ask you about a project that you had mentioned you were working on. I might butcher this, but Horlac, is that how you say
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's right.
So this is a municipal project, like I think you
Yep.
said it's about 16 million, just your part. Obviously,
Yep.
there's other contractors, there's other trades involved. So can you just, briefly walk me through this redevelopment project, and what
You bet.
does that actually look like on the ground for you guys?
Yeah, so yeah, municipal redevelopment project is what it is. It's a park that's been there since I think 1960 is when they initially constructed it. I think they've done a renovation or two over the years, but they essentially tore the whole thing up, underground paving the park, a couple of buildings in the park area being renovated and new ones added. There's a pond, or they're calling it a lake, but in Alberta, our lakes turn to sloughs really quickly, and so they drudged the bottom of it, got rid of all the gross stuff, and so it'll be swimmable for a little while again. But yeah, it's quite the project for us. The intent was to be constructing for 2 years, and we've been constructing for 1, and so we're tracking to hit that goal. But we are working directly with a general contractor on this job. A general contractor that does all kinds of general contracting, builds all kinds of buildings, large and small. But they've broken into the civil world as well, which is why they actually shortlisted us with a few other contractors to bid on this work. One of the reasons we were selected to do this work is because we're known for being able to hit deadlines, and we do what we say we're going to do. We're not the type of contractor that's going to slap you with hundreds of thousands of dollars in extras that weren't talked about at the beginning. We talk about the needs for plant material, and we're upfront with, hey, you got to tell us if we're going to get this job soon, or else we won't be able to have the plant material ready. We had to inform our suppliers the second we got the job. We had to inform our suppliers of plant material that they got to start growing this plant material for this job specifically. And so, you can imagine that if you didn't have that relationship with a supplier, you would be scrambling to find every bit of the plant material that you need. There's thousands and thousands of plugs and potted material, as well as some burlap and basketed material that we're planting on this site. So
Nice. That's quite a big. Is that the biggest project you ever worked on, or?
yeah, it is for sure the biggest project that I've worked on, and I think might be the biggest project that Edmonton has seen in the 30 years or so that I've been aware of big projects. It might be more previous to that, but it's quite the project. We're doing everything from the irrigation to even the fire pits that are being installed at the end for the park. Those that visit the park, you can have parties and fires and stuff in the evenings. So it's not a campground, so it's not overnight stay, but it's daily use.
Nice. So I wanted to talk about your the company structure as well. You had mentioned implementing EOS, and I thought that might be neat to speak to. You're at about 300 staff now, but you were talking about how that's changed over the years, and decisions that had to be made, and how you're really on track now with a model that's working for you. So could you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it's simply put a way of doing business. It's not a piece of software or anything like that. Mind you, they have software that you can use that can help, but it's more about a mentality and a way of organizing and structuring yourself. One of the first things that EOS encourages businesses to do is to fire everybody, metaphorically, fire everyone from their roles and their positions, whatever they are, their titles, and think about the business as in, what structure is best for your business. Once you can nail that down, then you start to decide, well, then now who fits in each of those seats in that new structure that you've created. One of the challenges that my brother and I came across at the very beginning is we were constantly being encouraged to do similar things. Dad was training, Josh and Brandley to take over this organization, and perhaps, inadvertently, he's trying to teach us both everything that's in his head and how he used to do things. When what we need to break through the ceiling that we continued to bump up against, that 20 to 25 million, we continued, for several years, we can't break that 25 million. We just, no matter how hard we worked, how many hours we put in, how many people we talked to, we just couldn't get there. And it was because of our structure. We needed to change it and make sure that everybody was working in their unique position. Everyone was doing what they're uniquely good and best at, rather than putting people in positions where they're okay at it, but there's things that they're better at, and we talked a lot about what we enjoy doing, because if you're not enjoying the grind, you don't make any progress. So we separated responsibilities, created this structure that we felt was going to get us through the ceiling. And 3 years later, we broke through. We got to 30 million. And one of the primary reasons for getting there last year was William Horlock Park, the project that we were just talking about. Yes, it's a large project, but it also helped us realize that there are other projects like that out there. We started looking for them, and there are more. Maybe not to that scale exactly, but there are more $5-10 million projects out there. And if the customer is our ideal customer, we'll do it for them. We can make it happen. So it was more of like an opportunity to really see what we are made of, and ensure that everybody was in the right place.
Nice. So you're talked about Edmonton. So what is the landscaping market like in Edmonton? Right, it's cold for much of the year. I mean, is there a lot of competition? Is there a lot of opportunities for you? Is there a lot of commercial opportunities as opposed to residential? So what does it look like?
Yeah. In the past, we would say yes to every type of work, every size. We did residential. We do residential work. We do commercial and industrial work. We do developer and municipal work. We do it all. And we've seen every type of competitor in each of those spaces. And what we like to, I guess, differentiate is that we provide a full service, personalized experience from the start. And through that experience, we're going to provide a higher standard of care. And we try our very best to instill at the beginning, and then ensure by the end, that our customers know that we are the safe choice every time. That not only from a safety in construction perspective, that we really put a focus on safety with our team members, and we want them all to arrive home safe every day, but also from a perspective of we've been in the industry for 45 years now, and we're not going anywhere. If you have a problem on your site, 3, 4, 5 years from now, you can call us and we're going to make sure that we make it right. We guarantee satisfaction with our customers. And so by differentiating in that way, the ideal is that we're finding customers that value that. Not everybody values all of those things. Some just want quick and dirty, and they don't care if you cut corners. They just want to get it looking greener than it was before when it was just dirt. And that's okay. Some people need that kind of a lower cost service, but that's not us. And we have to stick to that mentality and make sure and communicate that to our customers. And so we've discovered that we can't keep saying yes to every type of customer. We vet our customers a little bit more than we have in the past. For residential work, we're trying to cater more to the higher end, larger homes. But we'll do a smaller home as long as that customer understands the level of service they're going to get, and therefore it costs a little bit more to get that. And so we push that we are high value, not necessarily the highest price, but highest value out of any other organization you'll come across in the Edmonton region. And so as we've built and grown in the commercial world, we've also seen other very aggressive competitors coming in trying to price 30 and 40% lower than us. And we know, just by sheer cost alone, we know that some of those competitors are buying the work. We know that they're buying it at lower than net zero. And that can be a good strategy to get a client, and if you can keep them. But it's not sustainable, and we know it's not sustainable because we've tried it. We've been one of those that have tried racing to the bottom, and it just doesn't work long term. So, and it's not good for the industry when competitors do that. But that's the world we live in, free market economy, right?
Exactly. I wanted to ask you too, obviously you're biased on this question, I'm sure, but where do you see landscaping in the whole building process? Like, I think for me anyway, it's not something I think of when I think of the construction process. I would think of everything else. So where do you see it as part of that whole construction process, whether it be on a commercial property or residential? And on the heels of that, is there something that maybe contractors or developers overlook other than landscaping itself? But when they are thinking of it, in terms of budgeting, for example, for landscaping work, is there something that's common that those developers would overlook?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things that Classic has really been trying to change about the way landscaping is viewed is just that it shouldn't be let's now talk to our landscape contractor that we've been using and see if he can get us a price. Now that the building's built and the grading's done, what is it going to take to landscape? Budgeting at the beginning is super important. And I'm not going to say that nobody does it, because they do. And landscape consultants have a big part to play in that world. However, one of the things that we've been doing recently is working closely with developers and or commercial property owners and even residential in the design process. If someone were to come to us before they even set up their mortgage on their house and said, "Hey, what's it going to cost me to landscape this?" We'd probably say anywhere from 5 to 10% the cost of your house. And if they had that information before they went to the bank for their mortgage, they likely could build all of this into their mortgage right at the beginning, make life a whole lot simpler. Whereas if you built $1 million home and now you're like, your house poor, now I got to landscape this, and they're telling me it's going to cost $100,000 to landscape my property. Sometimes it's even more than that, depending on the size of your backyard. It can be very challenging to make that work, especially in today's economy. So landscaping shouldn't be an afterthought. You said construction process. We have Classic Landscapes has built our construction process, and it's pretty thorough. And so for some people to think that, landscaping isn't part of the construction process to begin with, it's for sure an oversight. And so we've started doing design work for developers. So we're coming in 2-3 years before we would even spread a grain of topsoil on their site. And we're talking about the things that they want to see on their site, the things that they care about. And then we can help them bring that into reality and say, hey, you know what? That kind of plant material is not going to grow well here. Or, hey, we know our suppliers have struggled to keep up with the demand of that particular plant. So we should build in a different design. And then we can give them exact budgets rather than approximate, right? They're guessing with consultants. But if they bring us in at the beginning, we can say, no, this is going to cost you this amount, and you can add 2 or 3% per year based upon inflation. And it goes so much better, so much smoother, and so much more efficient.
I want to ask, we'll wrap things up here, but I just had a few more questions. I want to ask about the future of Classic Landscaping. Where do you see it going in 5 to 10 years, for example? I mean, you could speak to revenue wise, or just the shape of the company, what it's going to look like.
Mm-hmm. So we've set our 10-year target to be 100 million in revenue, and Alberta's choice for all your landscape needs. And so that's kind of like our BHAG goal. I don't know if you've heard that term before, but we see ourselves operating in a number of different municipalities throughout Alberta 10 years from today. I see ourselves 5 years from today operating in at least 3 municipal areas in the Alberta market. And each of those municipal areas are going to require, a management that allows ownership and the leadership team to not be in the day-to-day. So it's going to take some really good people, and that's the key for us, and the discovery too, as we've been trying to break through the ceiling, is it's so important for everyone to be rowing in the same direction and to be on the same page in terms of values and culture. If you don't have that, you're stuck in the mud forever.
So Josh, with that setup, would you still have just one location in Edmonton, or would you need new locations to service those other areas?
Yeah, you mean in terms of the retail side of things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't decided that is a necessity. Like for now, we feel that we could expand on the construction front without having actual owned landscape supply centers in other areas. We can create partnerships with already existing suppliers in those areas. One of the things we've discovered too is, we're good at garden centers, but we're pretty young, like compared to some of the garden centers that are out there. We're a 35, I think that's when he started, 35-year garden center. And whereas, many of our competitors in this Edmonton region are actually like hitting 60 years. So they've been doing it a lot longer than we have. So we have lots to learn there. But on the construction front, we feel like we've really nailed down what this landscape construction is all about. And we feel we have the best to offer those clients out there. So that's going to be our focus, is expanding through our services, and then taking the opportunities that come on the other divisions.
So how far do you see your crews working on the service side? I mean, from Edmonton.
So right now we're in negotiations on some jobs in Airdrie, which is 2.5 hours away from Edmonton, and then also negotiations on a project in Lethbridge, Alberta, which is 4.5 hours from the Edmonton region. My brother and I are going up to a conference in Grand Prairie, Fort McMurray, which is north 5 hours. So we're starting to branch out there. So we're willing to go throughout the entire Alberta region.
Wow, make for some interesting journeys with the crew.
For sure.
Lots of stories to come out of that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
On the topic of stories, I wanted to hopefully not stump you on this one, but I was just wondering if you had, we usually stick to positive, maybe a little too much, but sometimes it's nice in hindsight to look at some times that were rough. So I was just wondering if you had any stories, things that obviously you learned from. I mean, it does not still negative to the date to today. To now, you can look back and you have a lesson learned and a story to tell.
Yeah, you bet. Family business is, as I mentioned before, it's not a walk in the park, so to speak, no pun intended. But my dad, built this with his bare hands. And so anyone growing up working alongside their parents will say that they will have their very strong opinions on how business should be run and how it should work. At some point, though, each of those founders get to a roadblock where they maybe can't see the vision for the next 5, 10, 20 years. And it's at that point they have to be honest with themselves, with the organization, with their leadership team, that, hey, I'm not the right one, I'm not the right fit anymore to keep this thing going into the next generation. And that's kind of where we were at one point, especially when we started on the EOS journey, where my dad felt pretty strong that he should stay in the visionary role, when he was feeling like he wanted to consolidate and reduce the size and make it simpler for his two boys that are jumping into this monster of a company, almost in a way trying to protect us from what he had to experience. However, we have to, as leaders, figure out how to let go of the vine is what the term they use often in EOS, and trust that the next leader or whoever you may have delegated to can do the job as good as or better than you can. And if it doesn't work out that way, either way, the only way to break through the ceiling is to let the next generation go. And so we had long conversations, and there was a pivotal moment. We sat in my home office one evening after a long all-day meeting with our leadership team, and had to be really open and honest. And it turned out that he wanted to step back. He wanted to let go. And it was EOS creating that structure that showed that my brother, he wanted and he was good at operations. Me, I wanted the visionary side. I wanted the sales and marketing aspect of the organization, and I like it. And my brother likes operations. We wanted to do that work. And by separating it, it just gave us more capacity. And so it was that moment that was really hard. He had to be super honest with me. I had to be super honest with him. We argued back and forth, but worked through it, and our relationship is still fantastic because of it. So that was a tough time for me, I would say.
No, that's definitely a success story for sure. I think I've pretty well covered everything I wanted to ask. I want to be respectful of your time as well. But where can people find you if someone's interested in doing a a landscaping project in your area and they would like to chat with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. And so maybe you can provide them with my LinkedIn information there. But my email address too, josh@classiclandscapes.com. I'll take any emails all day. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this has been a real pleasure. It's been very insightful to learn about, the landscaping industry. So thank you so much for taking the time and sharing about your journey and just the company structure. And that's helpful for any industry, but especially for us in the construction world.
Yeah,
So
you bet.
Thanks again, Josh. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Renee.
All
Thanks for
right,
having me.
take care.